Now, here are the main topics for today's discussions. AI's role in helping businesses achieve their goals. AI technologies integration roadmap. AI as it relates to cybersecurity. All right, let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to One Step Beyond Cyber. My name is Scott Kreisberg, and I'm the CEO and founder of One Step Secure IT. I've been helping small and medium-sized businesses for decades and decided to create this channel so I could share both my and my guests' insights on many topics surrounding safely living in today's complex digital world, as well as great business growth strategy. Today's conversation promises to be exceptional. Joining me in a few moments is our in-house cybersecurity expert, Tim Derrickson. And together, we are thrilled to welcome our special guest, Kurt Stein, for our highly anticipated discussion on AI. Now, Kurt's the founder and president of DTC Strategy, and he brings 25 years of experience in technology. Now, he specializes in future-proofing small and medium-sized businesses with practical AI solutions. All right, let's dive in. Let's bring in our guests today, Kurt and Tim. And most of you probably know who Tim is. Tim's our in-house expert. And how are you guys doing today?
Fantastic.
Awesome.
I agree with Kurt. Awesome.
Well, you guys are not in the technology industry if that's the case. Just kidding. All right. Kurt, I know we've been trying to get this one, in the can for a few months, but, life kicks in, and I'm so glad that we finally get this one out to our audience. AI, it's impacting all of us and all of our businesses. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So Kurt, just to kick things off for our audience, could you maybe tell us a little bit about yourself? What makes you tick? Anything that would be sort of insightful for our audience?
Sure. Well, I like long walks on the beach and I'm just kidding.
Man, if you've got time for that, again, man, this is awesome.
Although my wife takes me out to the boardwalk all the time. Let's go walk. And I'm like, okay, fine.
As my dad would say, let's go take a long walk on a short pier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the boring stuff, technology for 26 years. I never thought I'd find myself here. It's pretty interesting the way life goes. You have certain ideas or plans, or you don't know what you want to do. And it's funny where life takes you. It's, that whole saying of one door opens or one door closes, another one opens. I started my career at UPS. Completely different in technology, and I worked in the warehouses, and it was a tough job, but a great learning experience for sure. Absolutely. And then that's when I found my way to AT&T, and that's what started my career in technology. Was working at AT&T, where I started learning about data centers and MPLS technology and internet circuits and all that stuff, which I hadn't, I really didn't think about or didn't really know that much about. And I got thrust right into it. And that's where I began in technology. And I spent the next 16 years at AT&T. And I managed very large accounts. Like some of them, when I left AT&T, that was in 2013. BlackRock was one of my accounts, and I had a whole bunch of other accounts assigned to me. So just small accounts, but my responsibility. Yeah, which one is that?
Yeah, well, that's a big one. Yeah. So when you found yourself in that AT&T technology, and it was a transition for you, did you just sort of get bit by that technology bug? Because I know I sure did.
Yes, I honestly, yes and no. I say honestly because there's two sides to it. There are some that go on to research or building things and become very, very technical. I was on the technical sales side. So I tell you what was very enjoyable for me was the technology piece, but also solving people's problems in something that was very cutting edge. That was of interest to me. And look where I am now, right? It's an AI, cutting edge, very interesting, sales side, helping people out. So that was the trajectory, and that seems like that's followed me throughout my life. So I guess in that sense, it's bit me in that side.
It's almost exactly to my the same story or journey I've gone on. I loved technology so much, and I could see that people were struggling with how to use it in an effective, efficient way. So that's just always been where I come from. So on that note, as you may or may not know, our podcast is dedicated to empowering small to medium-sized businesses, which I know you do as well. And we do that through educational initiatives sort of like this. And it's focused on achieving business success with the aid of technology, which is, what we just went over. So given that sort of context, how do you envision AI playing a pivotal role in helping businesses to achieve their goals?
Great question. Wow, that is the question that people are wrestling with today. There are tons of different opinions. There are a ton of people with AI is going to take over the world. There's people that saying we don't need AI in the business. I mean, there's so much information, and I guess that's the other part of it that's pretty interesting. Like you just covered, we're at the beginning right now of the next revolution in technology. Right? We weren't around for the horse and buggy, right? And the cars. We weren't there for that, but we did get to see the .com age, right?
Sure.
The internet, the internet age, .com age. We get to see the cell phones, Apple iPhones that come onto the scene, and everybody's like, "Wow, these smartphones are amazing." We get to see cloud technologies, and now here we are with AI, the next realm, and it's absolutely fantastic, and it's got people very, very excited and very nervous at the same time. So it's a great question in the sense that, where do you see things going? And I guess I come from a very positive outlook. I come from an abundance mentality, from a very positive outlook, but I am not naive in the sense that I don't realize or don't understand that there are challenges. That's probably the best way to frame it, right? Round out the edge. There's challenges to everything. Like I literally just put a post out probably 2 hours ago. It was on Reuters about OpenAI saying that they stopped 5, cybersecurity attacks where people are trying to use their technology to be deceptive or use this, the OpenAI platform for deceptive means. This is, that's the part that I'm not being naive about. It is there. It exists. There's definitely some bad things that can come out of this, like anything else. But I come from a positive standpoint saying this is going to be a game changer for small and mid-sized businesses. And what I mean by that is the following. Remember when they talked about the internet being able to level the playing field when it came to marketing? Back in the day, it used to be if you didn't have a budget of $2 to $25 million to go work with the largest, marketing firms in the world, you weren't going to get your company name out there, right? It probably cost you a fortune to put an ad in the New York Times. It was non-starter for a smaller business to get into the playing field of the legacy companies. The legacy company areas. So that was like a glass ceiling, I guess you could say. And then the internet came along, and everybody said, "Wow, this is going to be a leveling of a playing field for small businesses to compete against the larger businesses due to that technology." And that's been a fact. And now you have social media that allows companies or you to do podcasts like this to get your name out there to help more people, which years ago that wouldn't have been the case. Right. AI is going to do the same exact thing for small and mid-sized businesses, where it's going to allow you to compete at a much greater scale with less resources and at a higher rate of speed. That doesn't mean that you should lay people off. That just means that, if you haven't been hiring as fast, you might be able to do the work of 5 people with your existing staff than if you were to go out and spend the money for 5 people, over a certain period of time. So definitely a great time for small, mid-sized businesses, as long as they understand how to work with it. That's my long answer to your simple question.
Well, no, and you see the big companies are introducing it everywhere they can, right? So Apple had their big rollout this week, and they're introducing their AI to their their devices, and so it's happening everywhere. Tim, what about you? Do you have any comments?
And I think I got a couple of comments actually. So what's really interesting too, Kurt, and I agree with you in the fact that there's a lot of good that comes with this. It also opens up new fields of work. When we talk about the internet. When we started doing marketing, all of a sudden we opened up SEO, search engine optimization. It started creating jobs, different jobs. So it was just more of a pivot than, like you were saying, you don't let go of your people. You might just need to, put them in a different seat for a little while until you get a feeling of what AI is, because you still need to put on those guardrails, and you really need to understand which large language model you're working with, how they're dealing with it. Some companies are actually starting to try and create their own little mini pools to create their own chatbots, their own AI. So it's exciting to see what's actually where it's moving.
Yep, I agree.
So true. Yeah. So, Kurt, when we were speaking and preparing for today's episode, you made many interesting statements, but this one sort of caught my attention. And you said you're seeing signs of AI fatigue emerging among businesses. Can you maybe expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. Yes. So, I mean that comes with everything, right? In the beginning. Okay. So, take for instance the Vision Pro glasses from Apple.
Yeah.
They came out. Everybody was amazed by it. Everybody started buying them, right? They're running out there. You see people driving cars wearing them, right? You start seeing all those YouTube clips.
Yeah.
People walking down the street and you're like, what are they doing? Like,
what are they doing?
And everybody loves that. You have those early adopters that rave about it. And then as time goes on, you started getting some of the complaints of dizziness. You started getting complaints of it's too heavy on the head, it's hurting them. And then you start getting a lot of returns. But the point of that statement is, in the beginning, there's a lot of early adopters that jump on and say, wow, this is absolutely amazing, which I'm part of that group. There are those that say, I just love it because it's new. There's others that say, I love it because I see what can happen. I'm part of that group. And then over time, people say, it was great, but I'm not really ready for it, or it's too much money, or I don't really have the right use case for it. And then you start seeing people return to units for whatever reason it is. And then it takes some time for it slows down, takes some time for it to speed back up again.
Right.
I see the same things with AI. It came onto the scene November 2022. It was absolutely amazing. I'm sure you guys have been playing with it a lot, even ChatGPT. Now you look at where it is now. You have View.com, Perplexity. I mean, just the list goes on and on of the tools that are out there. You have Elon Musk investing in Grok AI, right? You have all these different things coming out. You have Microsoft making billions of dollars of investments everywhere. Japan, Indonesia, in the Middle East. I mean, they're throwing billions all over the place. And you have this happening everywhere. The problem is, with all that happens, people do get overwhelmed. Those that are in the forefront saying, look, I get it. I'm going to play with it. I understand the concepts of it. I see certain use cases. Let me tiptoe into the water and figure it out. You have others that say, I completely understand it. They're racing to build use cases, which an example of that is Blackstone. I mean, I think they have over 50 data scientists right now. You have JP Morgan hiring data scientists. You have some of these massive companies that are all in, right? All their chips are in. They are investing heavily there. I see some law firms now hiring data scientists as well to help on that side. But then you have others that are looking at it saying, wow, it's pretty interesting, but I don't know what to do.
Okay.
I don't know where to begin, or the business is running perfectly fine right now, and they're getting overwhelmed with all the media attention, every different LLM announcement. Apple's announcing something, Google's announcing something. It's just constant. And I'm sure even a couple of months ago, remember when Google Bard, when they had that the issue with the bias? I mean, that was a massive hit to Google. But I'm pretty sure that any leader of an organization looked at it and said, I don't want that to be my business. So I'm sure that did have some impact on some of the companies that are on the fence, even though Google is starting to come back and fix things. But it becomes it's paralysis by analysis. It's overwhelming with all the information that's out there. And I don't blame smaller companies and mid-sized companies saying, look, let's just start tiptoeing in the water here. Let's see what's going on. But the business is doing really well right now. Why don't we just see what shakes out first before we jump in? That's what I'm seeing. I mean, it seems like it's a larger portion of the user base too.
Yeah. And, sometimes with this newer technology, it hasn't found its groove yet. It hasn't found, where it's going to, do its have its most impact. And like you said, with the AI goggles from Apple, or it's like, what are the real use cases of that? That's going to take a couple, 2-3 years before the developers get out there and really figure that out. That's very interesting. Yeah, I can totally see it. I can totally see that fatigue now that you've described it.
The other part of it too is you have catalysts, things that none of us can predict. Like we cannot predict what's going to happen in the future because it becomes a butterfly effect, right? One thing happens here, changes this, changes that, and all of a sudden, wow. I mean, that's how we got here from an AI perspective. You had some of the teams from Google. They're the ones that built the whole attention algorithm for AI, which allowed it to understand when you wrote something, to understand what was written prior in order to give a response, a very human-like response. If it wasn't for them, would we be where we are right now? And the reason I say that is anything can happen right now. Anything can happen in this conversation today. Says, okay, it might be 2 years, or they're still working on use cases. And then somebody does something and it turns it on its head. For instance, one catalyst that's hanging out there, and I've talked about it a few podcasts, and a lot of people have talked about it as well. Sam Altman's talked about it, and I heard a lot of people talk about it as well. It's that AI first unicorn company. The company that starts with one person running AI and is the next unicorn. When that happens, tell me how any other business can sit there and say, I'm not going to touch AI right now, if they just launch everything and run everything at scale using AI. It's going to be a catalyst that forces everybody to either use it, adopt it, or be left behind.
Yeah, it's a David and Goliath technology, like you said earlier. It is a game leveler. So,
well, and also it could go the other way as well, right? With something completely that we have no clue is going to happens, and it turns it on its ear the opposite way, and everybody goes a different direction. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. So tell me, like, how do you approach companies through the integration process of using AI technology with their existing systems? Like, do you have sort of a standardized roadmap, or how do you approach it? And what are some of the great stories you've got in that area?
Sure. It's a couple of ways. And as we watch it, we're watching how things develop as well. And we also have to shift and adopt toward the user base. And Microsoft Copilot has had us shift a lot as well. Okay. I knew that was coming on. I knew that was going to be huge. And Microsoft is a great company. And look what they're doing now. They've made massive investments, and it's just continuing. And now you see Apple doing the same thing with OpenAI, et cetera. So how we were approaching it was from a strategy, an AI strategy assessment. So it's a strategy and readiness assessment, because we understood in the beginning, it's no different than anything else. If you just jump into something and say, I want it right now, without seeing if you're ready or understanding where you should do it first, you're going to spend a lot of money. You're going to spin your wheels, and then you're going to be like most of those companies that run out and buy the product and they put it on the shelf, and it's a loss in the business because they didn't realize they had to upgrade their databases. They had to upgrade technology. It's like when your wife comes to you and says, hey, I want to change the furniture in your room. And next thing you find out that, wait a minute, I have to change the rug. I have to paint the walls. I have to put crown molding up. I mean, oh my God, I didn't think about all this. Right. And it's the same thing when it comes to AI. If you think you're just going to turn it on and it's going to work, you're going to have yourself an issue. Now, we're moving to Copilot. What we're finding is companies already have Microsoft. A lot of companies use Microsoft. If you want to turn on Copilot, you need assistance on that side. You need to train the model with your data. You have to make sure you're doing it right. Otherwise, you're going to be in a situation where either it becomes biased, you're putting information out there you shouldn't, it's not working the way it's intended. You could have an issue where your client sees something that you didn't want them to see, or responds to them in a way that you didn't expect. And now you're going to have egg on your face. And that's PR is probably the worst part. Having a negative PR situation is probably the worst part. So it starts with strategy and readiness assessment. We're finding we're helping a lot of companies now from a Copilot adoption standpoint, because they need to train their data within Copilot and do it right. The downside is with small and mid-sized firms, especially you guys can see, they don't get a lot of support from the larger companies, the Microsofts and all these of the world. They need help. And that's where we come in.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of education required with it, right? So it's such new technology. I mean, what we do with cybersecurity and IT infrastructure and compliance, all that kind of stuff. People think they have it covered, and they think that they're all organized and it's perfectly handled, but 9.9 times out of 10, we find out that it's not. And what you're doing is you're like, instead of just turning on this switch with Copilot that could cause a lot of problems, you need to come in and uncover what they really are trying to accomplish, make sure that's the right tool for them, and roll it out properly. And that's the small guy needs that.
I mean, there are some challenges, right, when you're running businesses, because that you're aware of that. And sometimes customers are not. They're like, wait a minute, why do I have to pay for this for you to tell me what I should do? And it's like, you think about it from a doctor perspective. If you walk into a doctor's office with your knee hurting, the doctor can't say, great, I'm going to put you in surgery tomorrow. It's
Right.
like, surgery for what? Right. So
Right.
he has to assess you. He has to, physically check you. He's got to probably do an MRI, a CAT scan, see what's going on first before you get into that situation, before he opens you up. Right. And that is, that is always a challenge. I'm sure you guys have run into it as well. It's like, well, hold on a second. Let's see what's happening first, because you may not need all of this. It may be something very easy that you can now turn it on. You're ready to go. Maybe, we find too, is some companies, they think they have their data in order, and it's not. It's not in order. It's not ready. And that's kind of a challenge for them too.
Absolutely. So we've kind of touched upon this a little bit, but are there any challenges that you commonly see are faced in adopting AI, and do you see them? How do you see them being addressed, either by you or internally?
Yeah, the biggest challenge is return on investment.
Okay.
So large companies and smaller companies both understand there's a cost to doing it. And it goes back to the earlier question of the, analysis, paralysis by analysis. It's like, well, what are we doing here? What's the right thing? Do we just spend the money and do something and not get a return? That is probably the biggest challenge, is explaining to companies, how do they get that return on investment? And it has to start with, we need to understand your strategy first. What are you looking to do? What does your business do? What is the core goals of your business? And the best place to start is to start small. Do something that actually hits those goals. If your business is, everybody's based on customer service, but if it was to we get back to customers really fast, or have that they love deep technical knowledge and quickly, and they don't want to wait for to get a person on the phone to get answers to things. Maybe a chatbot with access to all your documents that can provide them information instantaneously will be something that's fantastic for your business, and it'll be a benefit to your business and great customer experience. But if it's not, and you go spend money on that, and your customer base says, well, I don't need this, you're going to be in a situation you spent money and you're not going to have a great experience on that. So return on investment, it's the hardest part, is to speak to them and find out what they're doing, and then help them plan for what's the right way to move forward. And that comes back to being overwhelmed with how much information is out there, how many different tools are out there that they may or may not think they could just turn on and they're going to have a great experience. So that's where we spend most of our time.
Yeah. Just from my own experience, every business is trying to implement these chat bots, right? They're all trying to start you off like, contact us. There's no phone numbers anymore. They want you to start with this, chat with us now, but it's always a chat bot. So far, most companies are not implementing that well. I can tell you that, in my opinion. I don't know. Tim, you experiencing that too?
I've actually seen a couple do it really well, in the fact of, so remember the old days of voicemail, or when they first started doing the push buttons on the phones, and you'd get stuck in this navigation circle. And you would just go in a circle. You'd never get that representative. And I think I see the same thing sort of happening with AI. You go down those rabbit holes and you can't get back out again. But I've seen two companies, I'm not going to say who they are, that actually, after each interaction, it actually gives you the choice to go to a representative or try something else if you're getting the information you want. And it actually works pretty well.
Perfect. That's a good
Yeah,
implementation.
that seems to be the, when it went back to, start small. I think that's where some of the larger companies are saying, look, we'll get less pushback on companies. We'll start very small with a chatbot. That might be something that they will, they'll understand and say, great, let's start there. It's, customer impacting. So a lot of companies are focused on that. I've spoken to a lot of large companies doing that, but that's a small way to start. I don't know if it's necessarily the best thing for your business to start in that area. When I say start small, the importance really, I think right now for small, mid-sized businesses, probably the smartest thing for them to do right now will be for them to understand what is best for their business. Where are they looking to go? What do they want? Where do they want to be in 5 years from their goals, right? And then build little teams, internal teams, representatives from different groups or different organizations within their teams. IT department, not just IT, legal, HR, even if it's a smaller team, marketing. Have them sit down and let's start socializing where we think AI can fit in our business by having everybody share those ideas and bounce it off of what their understanding is of their business, their understanding of what their customers are looking for. That's a great place to start, because that'll start giving them the insights into where they should really focus their energy. At that point in time, companies like us can come in. You've already socialized that. You started becoming an AI first company by doing so. It's not new to you. You have ideas. And then from there, it can be molded to the next step, which is great. Now that you've talked about it, now that you understand it, now that you've discussed this internally, you had a few use cases, let's narrow it down to something that actually would be impactful for your business.
Hey, and that approach is awesome. When you do that approach, let's say you have your different teams doing that. Do you then come together so that rolling forward, the technology can work with each other, or don't worry about that? Marketing needs ways to engage prospects. That's what they're going to focus on. They can get an ROI on that. Accounting, sees ways that, they can send out bills much easier and faster and blah, 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 regardless of what marketing's doing. How do you see that?
So it's a great question. If you simplify it a little bit more, once you start socializing it, you build a list, right, of what is something that could be an immediate impact.
Okay.
And what's something that's a nice to have, but may take some time. And if you rate that of, look, this would be fantastic, it'd be game changing for our business, but that could be a year or two out, and who knows, technically, is there some solution that will already come out of a box that could do that for you, right? So you'd move that toward the end of your list, and you'd want to look at, let's just take a hypothetical company, right? You say like a retail company. I don't even know if it really would matter and stuff, but you take a retail company. Every retail company could be different, but what if it's a retail company that the biggest issue they have is their shelves are empty at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon when the rush hour comes in, or like they have a lull, like at 12 or something like that. People come in, and then by 5 o'clock, the next one comes in, and they're not stocking their shelves or putting stuff back on there again. The customer experience is going to be, every time I go in there, they don't have anything. Your customers are never going to come back again.
Right.
So if that's really a use case that would be extremely impactful to your business and drive your top line revenue and is a concern for your customers, and instead you started working on a chatbot, you're going to have yourself a major issue, right? So that's what I'm talking about, is if you're all socializing internally, you can kind of say, marketing will say, look, I really think that this marketing campaign would be the best thing for us. But other people in the group are going to say, look, but if you think about it, that's probably not what's best for us right now, because John is saying that, we're having extreme complaints on the customer side because we're not doing this, 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 and this. And when everybody's talking together, people can then say, you're right. We can do this marketing stuff at a later time, but we really should be focusing on this. Can AI help us? And that's probably a better example of how a company should really think. Don't look for the pie in the sky. Like, I'm going to build a robot that's going to stand out front of the store and tell everybody the greatest sales that are going on. That's probably not something you should do right now. But there are certain things, because it's your company and you know your company best, you'll probably come up with some use cases, like 3 or 4 use cases that would be extremely impactful, that then companies like us or other people on the outside could come in and say, great, we can do, here's the top 5. We can do this one in a week. We could do this one in a year. Like you can give ideas about what can be done.
Right.
And I think that is the best place for any small and medium-sized business to start at. That'll make you start to become an AI understood organization. And then from there, it's like the blinders come off. You start seeing all the opportunities. And then once you have one successful integration, then everybody starts getting used to it. Now it's great. We can start building on this now. And you're no longer riding with training wheels. Now you're like, okay, great. Now let's take the training wheels off and we can really start on some bigger projects.
Yeah, because now you've got understanding, you've got some success with it. Yeah, that makes total sense.
And then that same team, you have formed now becomes your internal cheerleaders, because they've been involved in it. They help with adoption as well. They become the partners of us, saying, this is, hey, organization, this is great. This is why it works. This is why we did it. This will be good for the organization. Because you guys know that the hardest part for change is people, right? Is people don't want to change. So you can roll out any new technology, any new solution. If they don't adopt it, the organization is one of 2 choices: threaten them to adopt it, or they say, you know what? It's causing too many problems. They're all upset. Let's just park that on the side. And they just wasted their money. So it's got a twofold effect. They become the cheerleaders, the internal adoption. They also help you get the right use case.
And in the third on that one, and in my opinion, hearing what you said, and the third option is, shrink or go down, go out of business, because if you don't get the buy-in or you just don't do it, then how is that going to impact your business, which is what we've been talking about. So now we get to enter the world that Tim and I live in. So how do you see the intersection of cybersecurity and AI, particularly given potential, risks associated with AI-driven technology? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Of course. I mean, so I told you I'm very positive, right? But I'm not naive. And I understand there are amazing, amazing productivity gains and innovative gains from AI. But the bad guys are just as smart. And they see this as an opportunity. And it's been the case beforehand, right? You have organizations like a JP Morgan spending probably billions a year on cybersecurity, and they still can't keep up, right? Because the bad guys, it's so profitable, they just keep changing because what did he say back in the day? Why do I rob banks? I don't remember which one's Billy the Kid or something, because that's where the money is, right?
That's right.
They're doing the same thing. So they're like, there's massive amounts of money to make here. And they understand what I said earlier on. They are small or even large, but they're able to accentuate their reach because of AI tools. So your space is huge, and it's only going to become more and more complex because they're getting smarter. They're using AI to their advantage. And now the selling point for you guys is, if a company's not using the same technology to counteract that, how are they going to keep up?
Correct.
Tim,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tim, you have a comment on that.
Yeah. I think what's also interesting, and it goes back to we can go back in time, right? It doesn't matter. It's a cat and mouse game. It's always been a cat and mouse game. It'll always be a cat and mouse game. Now it's just we're doing it faster.
Yep.
And when they find the hole, we have to fill it faster. So we use AI on both sides. They're using it to push those scripts faster, to try and get in faster. We're using it to block the hole faster and to watch the environments. And so it goes back to talent. It's all about, we have to be right. Blue team, we have to be right 100%.
Yes.
Red team, once.
Yes. And so you guys have seen it as well, right? The social engineering from a workforce is that, and an email is probably the easiest way to get in. So you drop the USB sticks, right? And somebody plug it into the computer, or you'd send an email and spoof the CEO's email address and send it to them and say, hey, I want you to open up, do this or do that, whatever it is. And they would go do it. And the bad guys understand that people get overwhelmed and they're you're right. They can send out 1,000,000 emails and one just has to be right and they're fine. So now add on to it deep fakes. Now add on to it the fact that they can take this podcast right here, your voice, Tim, your voice, Scott, my voice right here, my mannerisms by watching this, and create deep fakes and send it out to somebody saying, hey, join my Zoom meeting and I want you to go do this, this, and this.
I think they said it's 2 seconds now is all it takes of a voice, and they have your voice pattern.
It's crazy. So if a company's not doing something about it, they're not working with you from an AI perspective, et cetera, how do they expect to keep up? How do they expect to counteract that? You can't.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean the learning models are, I'm sure, scooping up all the social media stuff. So those people that love to post, what they ate for dinner last night, or where they like to travel, AI can easily deep fake that stuff now.
Yes.
So
you have prompt injections as well. We're learning so much. So you take this blue background right now, and they put into the blue background blue writing that once the system scans that website, it's gonna follow the prompt, right, and do something that it should not do. Well, how do you find that? Well, you can't use regular tools. You have to use AI. So look, I understand the challenge. We started off this conversation saying why. What do you think the issues are from an adoption standpoint? It is overwhelming. It's a rapid pace of innovation that is throwing people off balance. The part that really anybody should come away with on here is educate yourself around AI. When you educate yourself, you won't be so overwhelmed with what's happening. You'll understand it. You may not know every nuance. You may not know every new tactic happening out there, but at least you'll understand it from a very base level. And then from there, you'll understand when you guys come in and saying, look, we need to attack this, and they'll be so much more open to it. Right. And especially from my side as well, they won't be so concerned. So like when I look at the different types of customers, we just talked before, you have the Blackstones, the JP Morgans. They know what they're doing. They're hiring people, they're building stuff themselves, or they're working with massive consulting companies that will come in there, do one specific topic and leave. Right. Then you have the companies that on the other side of it say, I'm scared of this AI stuff. We don't need it. We've been doing this all the time. Well, they're not my customers. It'd be no different than somebody saying, we don't need cybersecurity. Well, you'd kill yourself trying to convince them to do it. It's not going to work. The customers we all love the most are the ones that say, listen, I'm reading about this. I know about this. It's something I really want to get started on, but I don't know where to begin. What do you guys advise? And that is a company that is open. They want to hear what's happening out there. Again, they're not naive. They're not just going to pay any price that you have, but they're open to find out and educate themselves on what's out there in order to protect their business and take the next steps forward. And I think that is a model that everybody should follow. Educate. Start teaching your teams to be AI first. Encourage them to work with ChatGPT. Encourage them to work with these different technologies. And what you're going to see as well is something to add as well. I saw a poll that came out. I think it was from PwC or something like that, saying that they've looked at companies, and about 43% of employees within a company were using AI without the company's knowledge. So
I believe that.
Do it. They're going to do it. I mean, are you going to block them from doing it? They're probably going to find a way to do it anyway. You're going to blacklist it and say they can't get to ChatGPT. They'll find some way to do it anyway on their phones or whatever.
Yeah, so, I was going to say on their phones. Yeah.
So if they're using it, it's like, why not just start educating them, get ahead of the curve, start teaching them what's happening out there, start building the teams. You can even go one step further, start building competitions. So, or, not a competition against each other, but more of maybe a thing where you say, everybody in the company, I want you to come to us with ideas of what type of use case we can use for AI that would be beneficial to our company. And you'll get, again, pie in the sky. You'll get things that never going to work. And whoever comes up with something great, you reward them in front of either social acknowledgement or a prize or a couple of days off or something like that, where you get people energized to start coming up with ideas since they understand your company best. And that might help you to really start getting on the AI train and learning.
I think that if you're going to be putting that type of, and I agree about using AI, there's no reason not to at this point, but if you don't have a policy in place, what they're allowed to put in those chatbots, what they're not allowed, which is more important to put inside those, especially in the LLMs. There's been a lot going on, and you had said bias, there's hallucinations. You really have to be careful about what type of information you're getting in and putting out.
Yes. Yep.
So you shouldn't upload your financial statement.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. Or put your database in there just because you can.
Yeah, probably a good idea.
Don't hook in your HR, everything from the HR perspective. Look up people's salaries and time off and sick days and medical records. I mean, it's stuff like that. So you're right. Again, and that's just another concern for a leader of an organization saying, oh my God, now I have to worry about all that as well. Well, guess what? You have to worry about it anyway, because like we just said, the bad guys are going to use AI in order to attack you and get that information anyway. So you have no choice but to understand what it is and start working with it yourself.
Absolutely. So guys, as we wrap up this conversation, let's indulge in a little creative thinking. So, Kurt, with your extensive technology background, if you could imagine, you could snap your fingers and have an AI-powered business assistant tailored to your needs, what features do you think you'd add to it, and how do you think it would benefit others?
I think something that absolutely everybody can use is from the email perspective, and it's coming on Microsoft Copilot. They've already said it's coming, where the emails will come in, it'll read the email, it will actually either go back to your database and refer to something if it's a product question, or it'll look at other emails that you've sent in the past. It will then generate the email response for you and send it if you wanted to. So that doesn't mean that everybody wants
maybe like in a pending folder so you could proofread it and okay.
Yep. So that is, everybody's trying to manage email. Everybody's always challenged the email. I'm one of the people, I give up on moving everything out of my inbox. I have folders, but I can't keep up with every single email that's coming in. I'll just spend the entire day just going through emails. So I've given up from that perspective, but there are a lot of email management tools. I know Copilot has that within it. And with me even saying that, there are certain concerns around it. You don't want to say the wrong thing or send it out, but it's coming real fast. It's about to be released. And once it does, it's going to be a game changer for businesses as well. And I think that is something that people can get a lot of use from that will be beneficial if used correctly.
That's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting. Like, I don't know if it looks at how you've responded in the past and all that. Yeah, it does. Okay, cool.
It does. But then there's other side to it. Microsoft Copilot says that it's going to, the generative AI within Microsoft Copilot is going to start taking snapshots of your system and everything that's going on there and start building a profile for you that's only within your area and not be shared with anybody else. And, Satya was talking about that. And I was like, he said, but we can always turn that off if you want to. And I'm like, wow, that's going to be a little concerning. And then you have all the generative AI agents that are coming next. And the agents are just going to be like your little AI bots that go out there and do multiple tasks at the same time and then come back to you. And that's most likely where that email is coming from as well. You have AI agents going out looking at past emails, past responses, how you've written things in the past, or write your emails and send it out. With all that said, some people might be concerned that that's going to reduce the amount of productivity in their work and they get to sit around and do nothing. That's not the answer, right? You don't want to
see what you're saying. Yeah. Well, like I could see, like, when I'm doing research, I'm Googling, I'm ChatGPT, I'm doing all kinds of stuff, right, to get that research done. I could see just sending out agents and going, hey, I want to know more about blank. And then it goes and comes back and says, here's what I found, so that's, I just made that up. It's probably real.
Yeah. And you're both scaring me because I'm thinking about this all from the other side. My mind's going privacy and when they get in, and what is Microsoft doing with this data, or Apple? They say they're not monitoring it, but they know people are using it for the wrong purposes, which means they are monitoring it. I don't know.
Yeah. You're 100% right, Tim. And I understand that from the security aspect, it does have companies saying, whoa, hold on a minute. And you have to have that push and shove. You can't pull it all the way back and say you can't do anything, but you also can't be like, run, go, because you have to find that balance. But you're 100% right. The AI agents are coming fast, and then you're right.
Too fast. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that's all the time we have on today's episode. So I want to extend my sincere gratitude to you, Kurt, for sharing your expertise and insights with us today. I know I've gained some valuable perspective on AI, and that undoubtedly will inspire our listeners. So thanks for tuning in today's episode. And if you found today's conversation engaging, I'm going to suggest you check out last week's episode as well. We featured April Yerby discussing risk management and cyber liability insurance. So be sure to subscribe, stay vigilant, and stay safe.